So if you go to the latest UI, when you select your server here, you have the options of backup to disk and simultaneously converge to an image, to a virtual machine image. This is P2V. The other one we have is B2V, backup set to virtual. Similar concept, but the only difference is you perform your SDR backup first. And then after that, you can schedule a conversions right after or on a particular date per week. For example, I want to make a conversions on every 5 days from this SDR backup set to a VMware image or a Hyper-V image. You can do it like that. So similar comment, the backup has to go to a disk, backup to disk, or deduplication folder. You cannot select a backup that goes to a tape. When you select your protected service, the option you go and choose is backup to disk and then convert into a virtual machine. So the only difference is the order how they perform. The first one is they're performing the conversions at the same time as the backup. The second one is right after the backup or on a scheduled time, then that you perform the conversions. The third one is point-in-time conversions. So once you make a SDR backup of any physical machines, later you can perform an ad hoc conversions. Okay? Anytime you wish, later you can select a SDR full backup and then convert it into a VMware or Hyper-V image. The user experience that you're going to see is like this. You have to enter your VMware credentials. You have to make sure these options override the virtual machine if it already exists. You've got to make sure it is checked. And then you have the options of specifying the physical memory and the disk partition configurations. That's it. The conversion will be performed at the back end. Same for the Hyper-V conversions. So you have to type in your credentials. Make sure this one is checked. So bear in mind, we will always override the existing conversion image. So in your environment, even if you have scheduled an ongoing conversions, there will always be one and only one VM image in your environment. Because every time when we perform a conversions, it will override the existing image. Otherwise, well, this storage will keep growing and growing forever. So similar experience as the VMware conversions. You get the options to specify your disk partition or whatever settings that you like. We support ESX 4.0 and upwards. We support Windows 2008 R2 Hyper-V. For one conversions, you cannot select multiple endpoints. So I cannot choose to convert a physical machine into VMware and Hyper-V. You can only select either VMware or Hyper-V, but not both. And remember, we're going to specify the VMware tool in the path as well. So when you actually start up the converted VM image, the Windows plug-and-play will detect all required drivers in that virtual hardware environment, okay, when it gets started. The second major disaster recovery features in Backup Exec is bare metal and dissimilar hardware recovery. So again, you've got to make sure your server have that status on SDR backup is on. So by that we mean we have at least performed one full backup of the servers that include the system state and all volume configurations. Once you have the SDR status on, you can perform a bare metal recovery or dissimilar hardware recovery. So, for example, you've got your Windows server. You back everything up to Backup Except 2012. If this server goes offline, if it crashed for whatever reasons, you can use the recovery disk, Symantec recovery disk. You go and find another physical machine, start it up. And then it will come to where you store your SDR backup. It can be on a local USB drive, it can be on a local tape drive, and it can be on a remote backup access server. So once the recovery is performed and then you restart your machines, there is no installations procedure involved. What you have to do in this scenario is only to boot up your machine with the SRD, the recovery disk. And then everything will be done automatically. So what type of hardware are supported with these features? We support all older BIOS and BR disk, and we also support the latest unified EFI, BIOS, and the GUID partition table disk. So when we perform the recovery, after you perform that steps, and you boot up your machines, all hardware detections will be performed, okay? And the SRD will contain most of the network and storage drivers for you to be able to boot up the other machines that you just located. If not, if you have a very, very old or very special type of hardware or servers in your environments, you can create your customized SRD recovery disk. So how do you create your recovery disk? Okay, a Symantec recovery disk is basically a mini Windows. Okay, you go and stuck it in your new servers, and then you get prompt. So if you have a 32-bit machine, make sure you have a 32-bit SRD that goes with it. Same for the 64-bit. The first time when you start up the SRD, you get home with a screen like this. I'm going to perform a simplified disaster recovery. And then with this mini Windows environment, you'll be presented with this wizard that guides you through the whole recovery experience. So the first tab is the network. Basically, your network card will be detected automatically, and the port per driver will be loaded for your NIC. If not, you can always do your manual configurations of the network card, and you can do your manual settings of the IPs or whatever. After that, you go to the Utilities tab, so you can load a few commands. For example, you have any older type of storage device, you can use a command type functions to load those drivers. So after all these steps, you'll be prompted, do you have your backup on the local disk, local USB or local tape, or do you have your backup stored on a remote backup access server? If I choose the backup access server options, I will get presented with this screen asking you to enter your backup access IP address. And then you enter the log-on credential to this backup access. So you get to choose which backup you want to recover onto this machine. By default, the latest backup will be presented. Okay? And then the current disk configurations will be shown. So if you go and find the machines, make sure they have a similar storage size. Okay? You'll be presented with a screen that shows all your volume size and configurations.